Good day, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Rylan. How are you?
I'm swell, thank you. Super pumped to get into this. Like I was just mentioning off air that I looked at your content. I think you got great stuff. But what I wanted you to do is to formally introduce yourself. I get the individual to tell the people about themselves because I think it's best stated from your perspective. So why don't you tell people who you are and how you got to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my name's Kevin Driscoll. I am a husband. I'm a brother. I'm a son. I feel like those things are always valid to go first. But I am also a personal trainer, fat loss coach, nutrition coach, whatever you want to call me from that aspect, who really likes to help people sort of transform their life from a health state of point of view. Typically what I say is I try to get people off that dieting roller coaster. That cycle that mentally goes around and things go crazy. Physically, things go up and down as well. So that's where I put a lot of my attention and focus as far as what I do on a day-to-day in my career is just work with individuals to find that harmony in their life. I call it the Goldilocks Zone. If everyone knows the story of Goldilocks, where the porridge is too hot, too cold, and just right. I like to say we try to find the just right zone of taking care of your health, but also enjoying life as well. But outside of coaching, I love to golf, love to hang out with my wife. We like to travel, just like to go experience things in life, simply like going to the beach. I'm actually originally from just 30 minutes north of Boston, Massachusetts, but now I live in San Diego, California. So really made a change of environment, going from one corner of the country to the other corner of the country. So we are very spoiled. We do pay our sunshine tax. We do have to pay for it. But we do get to enjoy the good weather a good chunk of the year. And then, just like anything else, I'm kind of normal, just doing normal stuff. And as a fitness coach, weight loss coach, you can call it, I love eating donuts more than anyone else. That's why I put a big donut in my logo, because they are the best. And it's a good and bad thing that I live right next to a very delicious donut shop that is like a mom and pop shop, and they make the best donuts in my neighborhood. But yeah, that's just kind of a little riff about me.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Sorry, my dog gets fired up.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Sunshine, chill out. Okay, so I love that. So I'm the cookie guy, so that's why my program's a Cookie Monster program. So we're pastry boys. I love it. This is definitely up my alley. Good. And that's so great that this is what more people need to know, is like we're not these dogmatic people that are like about all exclusive food. It's like, man, you could go the purest way, and it's like a very low percentage chance that's going to work out. And like you say, that Goldilocks zone, just to find the in-between is what you really want. What's funny though? Just a little bit of a side tangent. I've always feel like Goldilocks is getting the credit that Baby Bear deserves. Yeah. Because Goldilocks is the thief, but Baby Bear figured everything out. And so you know it is a Goldilocks zone. So I get the name, I get the mantra, but we're giving Goldilocks, the thief, all the credit, when really Baby Bear actually had it all figured out, right?
Dude, that's 100% true. Goldilocks is a scam. She's a scam. She's the one that broke into the house, stole the food and all that stuff, borrowed the bed. Yeah, and it was always Baby Bear just doing it right. So maybe I need to change it to the Baby Bear approach.
I didn't want to mention it to like throw off your approach, because it's a great name. I even saw a hilarious photo with you wearing a wig. I think it's a great branding. So this is more just me casting shade on Goldilocks in general, but this is great. I want to dive deeper in what makes a trainer a trainer. So why don't you tell me what brought you into the industry? What made you say, I want to help people with this?
Yeah, my cheesy answer is I love fitness and I love helping people, but obviously it didn't start like that. I grew up an athlete, baseball, hockey, was fortunate enough to play baseball in college. And the thing with growing up, I was also kind of like the chubbier kid. Always, I wouldn't say I was like obese, but I definitely was fluffier than others. And I heard that a lot growing up. I had, there's always this memory. I think a lot of us will have this ingrained memory of, that really almost like quote unquote traumatized us. But I remember being in, I think it was fourth grade. One of my I guess, classmates at the time had a crush on me. And I equally as her, it's a fourth grade relationship. But then one of my buddies came up to me and said, hey, I don't know why this girl likes you because you're fat. And I remember that moment, like a fourth grader, innocent, and just began very red, almost wanting to cry. But that memory is so instilled into me until today. But that was like the really first moment that it hit me. Is something wrong with me? Is something wrong with my body? And that did not feel good. And, continuing to grow up, would you just hear comments as far as being chubby, fat, all these things. And another part of this is I also grew up with a brother who was like the stud, right? He was athletic. He was in really good shape, fit, kind of a ladies' man, maybe we can call it. And there's always that looking up to him like, oh, he must be so happy. He must have it all figured out. So went through life, early ages of life, kind of going through that. And then once I shifted going to college, like I said, I was lucky enough to play college baseball, but also create this new identity, this new image for myself, because I didn't want to be known as this chubbier kid. Even though I had a lot of great things going on in my life, I had great friends, I had great people in my life, great experiences, all that stuff. But this image of myself weighed a lot on me. But like I was saying, so going into college, I wanted to make this shift. I wanted to be obviously jacked, like maybe a lot of us young guys growing up going into college. I want to be jacked, want to be fit, want to be this stud. And I did. Like I committed to the gym probably 5-6 days a week, if that. And just from doing that, I grew in love with the gym because obviously what it was doing for me physically, obviously confidence-wise, it was great. But even in college, that's when I started to experience a lot of this, what we call like yo-yo dieting, losing and regaining the same weight. So more aware of it now than I was back then. I was basically partying throughout the college year, right? Going out on Thursday, some Fridays, always a Saturday. And every time throughout the school year, I would gain a bunch of weight. Just gradually over the school year. I might go fluctuate up and down, but I'd always gain a bunch of weight. Then came the summertime where I'm out of college, on break for 2 months or so, 2.5 months. I would dial it in. Like, no more partying. Don't enjoy your vacations. Like, you are tracking your calories. You are not, drinking. You are not doing these things. So it's very all in. Like, once it was college time, is party mode. Party and fitness. Like, let's do it. And then summertime would come and just would dial it in. Like, be very rigid, very strict with things. And did that throughout all 4 years of college. And then after college, graduated with actually a business degree, just general business admin. And so I went to work in corporate America, doing like market research, doing sales, customer service stuff. And then I eventually became my heaviest working in corporate America. I was actually 240 pounds, so about like 45 pounds heavier than I am now. And through that time, still loved training. Like, training was never an issue after, getting into it in college. Because I also loved being the person that people would talk to about lifting, their program, technique, and things like that. I wasn't a trainer or anything yet, but I loved studying it. I loved looking up the trendy topics. I actually remember a side story here. I was in an internship my senior year of college for the summer. So I was obviously in very rigid and strict mode, but I read something that, hey, if you drink green tea, it boosts your metabolism and melts fat off your body. I'm like, oh my goodness, drink a cup of green tea? I'll drink 8. I'll have gallons of this stuff each day. So I was going through bags and bags of green tea a day. And obviously, like, technically it worked because I was in a calorie deficit, but obviously I spent a lot of money on green tea that summer. But like I was saying, so I entered corporate America, gained a bunch of weight, obviously a different lifestyle, right? There's a shift in my lifestyle from becoming very sedentary, not moving as much, not active as much, eating probably a little bit of my feelings there as far as not enjoying what I'm doing, maybe a little bit more health, the stuff that goes into that. But, I realized, hey, I'm 240 pounds. I got, at the time I had a spring break I was going on with my now wife, my girlfriend at the time, but my now wife, and we were going to Florida. I was like, oh, perfect. There's an event ahead. This will push me to lose some weight. So I did 2 days, cardio in the morning, lifting at night, 6 days a week. Dialed in nutrition, lost a bunch of weight. Again, I was probably around like 200 pounds. So I lost that 40 pounds, did it in a very unsustainable way. And then for the next probably year or 2 years, I would continue to lose and regain, not to the same extent where I got back up to 240, but I would fluctuate between 195, 210, 215, and would sort of play that game with those 20 pounds. And then eventually, I kind of hit like an overall wall in my life. I remember on my lunch break in an office, I actually just started a new job at that point. So I was about like 2 months in, and I kind of had this like mental breakdown of, I have to do this shit for 40 more years, sit at a desk. And not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm not trying to knock anyone that does that, because there is obviously a lot of value to it. But just for me, my personality, what I'm like, it just wasn't fulfilling me. And at that time, I remember this call. I called my old strength and conditioning coach from college, who would train me in the winters when I was home on like Christmas break and holiday break and everything. I called him, Steve Shepard, shout out Steve. And I was like, hey man, do you take interns? Like, I really love training. I love fitness. I want to help people at this point. Kind of a backstory here too. What sort of really made me lighten up with helping someone is going back to my office job. One of my coworkers, who we became pretty good friends, wanted to lose weight. So again, I love that. He was asking me questions, looking for advice. So we started going to the gym together. I talked to him about nutrition, which my nutrition coaching back then, I would not take it today. It was absolutely horrendous. I was like, no, don't put cream in your coffee. No, you got to eat chicken and broccoli and rice. Like, don't put like seasoning on that. Stop doing that. But in the end, he lost 40 pounds as well and made some great progress. I was really grateful for it. And that gratitude really lit me up, because I got to be a part of his journey. So anyways, that was a big part of like really wanting to also shift with growing the passion of training myself. Getting to help that individual was really meaningful and purposeful for me. So I hopped on that phone call, asked if I could intern him, shadow him, my old strength and conditioning coach from college. He's like, absolutely. Like, he took me underneath his wing. So the next day, did not show up to my corporate job. Said, I'm just not going to show up. Called you, like, this isn't working out. I actually think I sent him an email. Probably a scumbag move, but sent them an email, which actually like 2 months down the line, the company went bankrupt and like got rid of everyone. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
Good timing.
Yeah, great timing. And then from there, basically got a part-time job at Lululemon selling black yoga pants and started my way as far as becoming a coach.
You burned the ships. I salute you for that. I've heard of so many people doing that. Like, I think Mike, from the mentorship did that. I'm a guy that just needs a little bit of pay, so I always did jobs I didn't want to do for the sake of trying to eventually be a trainer. But I salute that. And I think it's so valuable that you had that awareness in yourself, being like, I can't live this way. And it's very common. Like, there's many people from the mentorship that I've had on here, and I asked them, and they actually some people had very good, steady paying jobs, and it was just emotionally breaking them. They just could not feel satisfied, but they had this external thing that they were really looking forward to, and how much meaning you could get out of that. Like, this is why we do what we do. As you said, it was a corny answer, but it's a sincere answer. I want, like, the fulfillment you get from seeing a change in a person is unlike anything else. And it does speak to an individual, a certain type of person. I've had an athletic therapist friend of mine, and, me and another coach are saying to him, hey man, you're capable of like telling someone how to train. And he's like, that doesn't excite me. But I'm excited about how someone could come to me with an ankle and now they can walk on that ankle better 3 weeks or 4 weeks from now. And then somebody asked me, I'm not excited about that. And so it's so important that a person does listen to that calling. That's something very intuitive to a person, that you want to listen to what excites you. What kind of, at the end of the day, the world is about service. It's about how you can impact the world, to know that you are literally here in reality for a reason. That's the one thing that we're guaranteed. You don't get to take anything with you, but you know what you can left behind, and the impact that you can have is the number one thing. And it should call upon a person. And and I'm right there with you. As soon as you said there was a little chubby kid, it's like I love people that come on my podcast that had a similar upbringing to me. Having that raw moment, I started to go into some of mine where it's like, it doesn't yours sounded worse than mine, but there was many times.
Thanks, man.
Where yours sounded really raw in like how vulnerable you were. I think I was just used to being seen as a chubby kid, and then little comments here and there, and it does wear away your personality. But then it becomes this defiance that you have to attack. At the same time, what sounds good from your perspective, and I had a similar one, because you said you were so grateful for everything going on in your life, and so it sounded like it didn't hold you back from feeling good about yourself still. And this was something I made a promise myself when I was very young, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm proud of myself for recognizing it. I was getting into fitness when I was like 13 or 14, and I started to say, like, this is about me being a better person overall, not just about aesthetics. I know aesthetics will come, and at the same time, it was, I know that I want to be the guy who's really fit and has a good personality. So I got to work on that right now. I got to act like it doesn't matter that I'm chubby. I got to be funny no matter what. I got to be a good personality no matter what. And that actually creates a better character, because if you know a handful of people, and I'm not saying all mesomorphs or people who are just jacked and naturally lean end up being dicks, but there's a high probability you won't develop the same character resiliency, right? And so you're able to look at that, past history with some gratitude. And I had a very, very similar, like our stories are very similar, of the yo-yo dieting. Even when you figure it out, you don't. It's like, it's still this roller coaster ride. So let's dive into the yo-yo dieting mindset. I think there's so much we can unpack here. Yeah. I feel like I've had similar journeys. Let's talk about some of the big shifts that you were like, that was a really big lesson. And even then, like, we probably be similar to yourself, where it's like, that didn't even do it all. But like, what were some handful of key lessons we can go over on your yo-yo dieting journey that eventually progressed you to like, I don't think I'm a yo-yo dieter anymore? So name a few.
Yeah. So it's so funny too, because just like you said, there's moments where when you're yo-yo dieting, you do lose the weight. Like, you make progress, you reach your goal, and you're like, dang, I did it. I got this physique I'm really proud of. And it feels good. And there's those moments a couple months later where it creeps back, you have a setback and all these things. And then you feel a little bit more guilty, maybe a little bit more shame about it, because you sort of just let all that go. And I think a big part of, coming through the yo-yo dieting world is you do it for years. Like, you don't know it's a problem until like you're eventually exhausted that, hey, I'm tired of just dieting all the time. Like, being in this diet mentality where every decision I make relates to my body and what it's going to look like, not even what it's going to feel. Because a lot of me, like, vice versa to you, was my goal was always aesthetics. Like, I didn't care if I had to sacrifice X, Y, and Z. I would, like, again, I'm drinking 8 gallons of green tea a day, but I was willing to do whatever it took to have a nicer aesthetic, until eventually you're like, this is exhausting. This is tiring. So all in or all out, right? And I'd say the biggest shift that came to me was, I would even say I wasn't aware of it yet, but I did find Jordan. Like, I found Jordan Syatt, who's a big mentor of ours, and just looking at his content and hearing someone else say, hey, if you eat a salad, you're not going to be shredded. If you eat a donut, you're not going to get fat. I'm like, oh, like, that's a pretty good point. It's when we eat the donut and we feel like we fucked up, and so we have 12 more donuts because of it, and we just get stuck in that cycle. So a lot of it initially for me was the labeling of food of good and bad. Like, junk food is bad. Salads are good. And we label it to ourselves. Like, if I have this food, I'm either a good or a bad person. And when we have those bad foods, we feel like we're a bad person. We feel like we did something wrong. We probably feel like we're broken, or what's wrong with me because now I have this, and why can't I stop having it? And so it ends up being a lot of what kind of goes on in our head that creates these actions to happen, these behaviors to happen afterwards. So just starting to learn more about that, and then eventually I actually continued to track calories. And this is actually when I started coaching too. Like I was still working on this whole mentality of it all, even in my first years of coaching. And I continued to track calories. And what I started doing is just putting bad foods into my calories and then making it work. Like sometimes it's not always that simple for individuals, but doing that and being like, hey, I'm having pizza tonight, working my calories. All right, it fits my calories. Cool. And then doing basically like that and focusing more on like the consistency of it long term. And just, hey, as long as I'm hitting my targets, yeah, I can technically eat whatever I want. Now, I don't want to abuse that, but I'm definitely going to use that to my advantage. And over the course of maybe 6 months of doing that, it sort of all clicked. It's like, oh, look it, I've lost weight and created this new physique. And I feel good. Like I actually feel not burnt out because of it. I actually can see myself doing this for the next 6 months as well, and so on and so forth. So for me, a big shift at first was really kind of working out of that all or nothing sort of perfection mindset and giving myself permission to eat certain foods and sort of work at it and making sure I'm still hitting my calories, but I am including these foods as well.
I really like that. That's the thing that yo-yo dieters, all or nothing people don't really believe in. Mm-hmm. We're going to dive a lot into the identity piece, but just the phrasing of I'm an all or nothing person actually can initially sound appealing to be prideful of, right? Mm-hmm. I'm all or nothing. Because there's like, I'm all, like that all sounds fucking sweet. Yeah. Until you literally just said that you're guaranteed you're eventually going to do nothing. Because the probability of you being 100% successful on an attempt to doing anything is going to be like 99.99% of the time you're going to fail. So you just took pride in saying you're eventually going to quit. Whereas, if you shift that and it's like, what is the sustainability? Like, it's so much more boring. It's way less sexy. It's way less appealing. And it's actually a lot more uncomfortable because it requires more patience. It requires more nuance. It requires more sustainable effort. And like you had mentioned, it's funny because I actually didn't even reflect on this. You mentioned about fitting in the calories during your deficits, during the weight loss journey. And it's funny, I didn't even realize I didn't do that at all, actually, until like the last maybe 5 or 6 years till I met my girl. And she was starting to have them. And before I was super uncomfortable. I'm like, no, we can. And, similar to yourself, when you go into these all or nothing, and I would go into binges. I would go into just like, it's literally, I went from no Halloween candy at all to I just ate 8 whole chocolate bars, maybe more. And I think if you were to test my blood sugar, I'm diabetic right now. And it's just, because it was just, you're in that trance, you're in that zone. And, you talk about how it's like there's bad food or good food. And it's just like the big shift I really encouraged people and I understood was like, it's not good or bad. It's just leveling degrees of higher or lower quality, right? And it's like the only thing that you would inherently say could be a bad food would be something toxic. And let's not go down the rabbit hole of saying that sugar is toxic, because it's not inherently toxic. It's just fucking calories.
Right.
And so if we say alcohol, fair to say that's toxic. It literally has to get processed by your liver. And we could say something like, if you're lactose intolerant, if you have an actual gluten intolerance, then this is going to be an emergency system. That's an F food. And so I always tell people to grade food, A, B, C, D, or F. And you make your own choices on this shit, right? Because sometimes, like, we'll say, like, the A's are like, you eat A's, you're going to have a high GPA, you'll have an A physique. Yeah. You have some B's, and, like, it's try to get a good grade point average, right? And you could fit D's in and have a pretty damn good grade point average. But the more D's you try to eat, the less chance you're going to have an A physique and a good GPA. And so having this context is so valuable for people, but it's hard to accept. And I feel like there is this hard shift for people, whether you're a yo-yo dieter or someone not really understanding the macros, because there is the far extreme of if it fits your macros to what we're kind of talking about is having room for your calories, having room for your budget. What do you think people really miss when it has to do with including these types of food, understanding how to utilize this system?
Yeah, I think as far as like what people miss as far as using the system, I think it ends up coming down to, excuse me, I think it comes down to sort of what we've been talking about is, I think a lot of it comes down to like this belief, right? Our self-beliefs, the limiting beliefs we have. A big shift I've made in my coaching, and particularly maybe this last year, I know we talked about this, but it's like identity work, right? I think, if not more, but at least 95% of people have a good sense of what to do. Like, we know we should have fruits and vegetables. We know we should be having protein. We know we should be working out. But the question we don't ask these individuals sometimes is, well, why aren't we doing it? Like, what is stopping you? We know, right? But what's stopping you from doing it? And it's typically going back to how they identify themselves. And the example I always use for this is, imagine the person who says, I'm not a morning person. Well, you're right. You probably are not a morning person. If you truly believe you're not a morning person, you're not a morning person. But I bet you I can break that. If I gave you $1 million for the next month to go to the gym 4 times a week at, let's say, 5 or 6 a.m., I'm sure you'd find a way to do it. Same, another example. Hey, if I took your family hostage and the only way you can get them back is if you eat 100 grams of protein a day, you're probably going to start paying attention to how much protein you're having a day. Because obviously we can talk about there's more of a reason why behind it. Like, that could be a big part of it. But there's all of a sudden the shift that you are able to take action and start shifting the way you think. Shifting the way you take action, because now there's obviously, again, a little more why, a little bit more of a reason. But then what it does do is, when we talk about this, it goes, oh, yes, I was just thinking differently. I was believing I truly wasn't this. But when there's actually a strong reason in here, I actually can shift and become that more person. I can eat my protein, eat my fruits and vegetables. So a lot of it is what I'm telling the story I'm telling myself. I think this also comes with years and repetitions of ways we do things and the habits we built, whether good or bad. But we just sort of have this conversation and create this awareness, more or less, of, well, can we actually not do these things, or is that what we're just telling ourselves? And is that how we're sort of identifying? So I'm just going to share a quick example of how the listeners can take away in doing this. As far as starting to shift that identity, because we can start showing up as that person we want to become, right? We don't have to wait till a certain moment or wait till we lose 10 pounds to start becoming this, let's call it, happier person. But I always will have a lot of individuals write out, what your perfect day is 3 years from now when you've lost all your weight. Like, what does your perfect day look like? And I want to the detail of, you wake up, go on a walk, have a cup of coffee with your partner, play with the kids, play with the dog, head to work, do this thing, maybe on lunch break, you go work out. What is this perfect day you imagine all your habits? And then we look at the perfect day. We might not start with everything, but we're like, hey, there's things here we can start doing, right? We can start going on a walk each morning. We can start working out 2 to 3 times a week. We can start putting our meals together for lunch and breakfast. We can start doing these things. And then we start doing them, and we start showing up as this end goal person today. We might not be physically where we're at in 3 years from now today, but we can start creating this person, right? Because who we are is just a byproduct of the actions we've taken. Like, who you are today is just the byproduct of all the actions you've taken over the last 10, 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to shift our actions, right? And then 3 years down the road, that person who is 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 plus pounds down, we're going to today start showing up as them little by little. Again, we're not going to do a 360 transformation, but we're going to take little actions, little steps to start being that individual where we're not even worried about the weight loss or focusing on that. Not that we're not paying attention to it, but we're putting more attention to the things we can control, simply put. And then 3 years down the line, you're the byproduct of that goal you had in mind, right? That person on that perfect day. And we have this vision now of where we're trying to go. We've now created clarity in the direction we want to go and how we want to start showing up. So I don't know if that actually answered that question, but my brain was just on top of that.
No, I like that. That's man, we use that in business, right? Like it's a really useful perfect day formula. But it's so important people start recognizing that person, especially when you're a yo-yo dieter, you're thinking of short term. You're thinking of just like, how can I get this weight off? And it's like, well, but who are you going to be in 3 years? That's a scary question for a yo-yo dieter. I don't know what, beach season's coming up then. I don't know what dress I'm going to try to fit in. That's not the point of this. The point of this is that you're going to fit in the dress 3 years from now, but you don't have to cut for it. You don't have to starve yourself and do 2-a-days for it. And you can actually enjoy the process of getting there, having a donut or a cookie on the way. And what you mentioned was super powerful. I can't remember the actor who said it, but he said it so well, and it's just quite simply that the person you want to become, you need to start the habits now, slowly. And it sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but the way that you oriented it was more systematic and I think tangible for people. It's something anyone listening to this podcast should do right now for themselves, is think, okay, 3 to 5 years from now, what does that perfect day, that perfect healthy day look like? With including fun, with including socialization, because all of that stuff is healthy in the person that you probably want to be. And so start thinking about that. And then what you did so well there was like, okay, we're not going to do it all. That's for sure not going to work because that's what we don't want. We're not going to do the extremes overnight. But if you want to become it, you got to practice being it. And I've said this sentiment for a very long time. People always say fake it till you make it, and I say practice till you become it, because it's not faking, it's an attempt. It's an attempt to a behavior. And so people say fake it, and it's not faking, it's literally trying it. It's just trying that. It's trying to be someone who goes for walks. It's trying to be someone who will prioritize their meal plan. And you have to have that inherent, certainly the value, but you have that clear picture. And I actually got to talk about that value picture you had, because this also reminds me of one of my analogies very well. The way you said it was super potent. If your family was hostage to eat 100 grams of protein, would you do it? And it's just, it sounds so obtruse and out there. Be like, well, yeah, I would do it. And so it's like, okay, hang on a sec here. You're now, let's say you're a middle-aged person and you can't eat 100 grams of protein. You're a middle-aged woman that's osteoporosis. You're not strength training, all these things. Well, guess what? Your family's well-being does weigh on this, because if you age like the way you're aging now, when you're 60, 70, now your family's going to be hostage by your health. Yeah. So that's a way to weight it on yourself when you're struggling with your own priorities. And it's like, that's such a helpful analogy, because people need to see the problem that will weigh on them with massive regret 20 years from now today. But you can't. It's so hard to feel. So you create, like that analogy is a way to create feeling, create it in immediate. If it's on your front door, you care. And it's not logic. Logic will not work, but emotions work. So how emotionally heavy would that feel if you held your family hostage with how poor your health was because you didn't start today, because you didn't do one walk a day just for the next little bit? And so I think this is very potent. Just to come on my analogy, it was always, we have no problem with, doing like, basically what we see as self-sacrifice and taking the torture and not treating ourselves well and putting it off. And so I always use the analogy of watching TV and someone's like, tell me where the rebel base is, and you'll be like, yeah, I'd be strong, I'd fucking hold out. Yeah. And then they bring in a loved one and it's like, we're gonna torture you until you tell. So, oh fuck, I'm giving up. Like, I'm giving up if it's someone I care about. And that's how we need to apply our fitness and health to these problems. And I want to come back to the emotional piece, because I think we can dig deep on this. Identity is, it's more than just the way you think. It's the way you feel. And this is one of the best podcast guests that really changed the way that I understood this problem. Her name's Adele Sprague. I'll send you the podcast after, but it's like, our identity is not a thought process, it's a feeling process. And our thoughts then justify our feelings. Because we always want to believe we think, feel, we feel, think, and then act. But we feel, act, and then rationalize our thoughts. So you have that donut, and then you start eating more donuts and you're already rationalizing, well, I fucked up. So that's a rationalization, right? Because I already messed up. So you created, which isn't even a rational thought, right? Yeah. I already fucked up. That's not a rational thought. That's just you saying something about your feelings. Yeah. But if you start to dig deep on the personality of the identity, you can change the way you feel. And one of the things I noticed on one of your pieces of content, the way you talk to yourself is important. Mm-hmm. And you had made this kind of joking, it was like a spoof reel. It was like about, oh man, you know, I overate. I ate like an asshole, or I ate like a shitty person. And that language, you and I can both understand we've used for ourselves.
Yeah.
But that is what reinforces the bias to the identity. You just called yourself a piece of shit for the way you eat. What are you going to want to do next time you start to eat like that? You're going to feel bad. You're going to keep eating because you feel bad, and then you're going to just re-identify with it, right?
Yep. You're going to identify as, I used to call myself a wimp, piece of shit, lazy, all these things. And obviously, every time, like you said, I would eat the donut, I would skip a workout. It's like, oh, yep, I am a piece of shit. That's who I am. It became such a strong label in my life until, like you said, we sort of have intention behind it and start to catch it, right? You start to catch it and almost like rephrase it, or also realize like, oh, again, did the donut ruin anyone's progress? No. Like, let's actually think about this. What is actually going on? What's the truth, the facts of what's going on?
It's so important. I love that word, catch it, because I think that's a helpful tool. And that was a big shift for myself, was when I was just catching my thoughts, or catching myself in the moment of being about to binge eat, being about to go down that rabbit hole, and just, okay, let's start by catching it. And if you have the thought and you call yourself a piece of shit, you call yourself this or that, just catch it. Start there. Mm-hmm. Now, what you mentioned, like, it's a reframe. And you know, there's this, you might have heard this, like, more like, you know, it's like not body positivity, but body neutral. And I just think neutral thinking is the term that we need to use more. And I can't remember the guy's book, but terrific book. And it's about neutral thinking. And it's not that things are, you don't label them good or bad. You label them objectively. So you start to look at yourself more like an experiment or a scientist, like, hey, this isn't good, but I don't have to label it with these heavily emotionally weighted terms. It's like, I overate, I binged eat. That's what it is. It's not that I am a piece of shit. I am not an immoral person. I am not murdering anyone, doing anything actually terrible. But I know objectively, I'm likely going to put on weight. Objectively, I ate too many calories. You could just use the measurement concept and pull the emotion out of it just for a little bit. Then objectively ask yourself in that moment what led to it. Start to ask where the emotions are coming from. Start to investigate. And that catching it, I think, is a really key just tip for people. Start to catch it and to work your way up from there. Are there any other real big things that you feel help people break through this new identity?
Yeah, for sure. So as far as breaking through the identity, you know, the way I structure my programming, which I feel like we're very similar in the way we coach and whatnot, or at least have a lot of similarities, the way we think about things. But the way I sort of structure my program is fat loss is just one out of 3 phases, and it's like actually a small phase, right? We have our fat loss phase where, yes, we dial in the numbers, we pay attention to our targets, progressive overload our workouts, but that's actually the second step we take. The first phase is what I call the foundation phase, right? You can't build a house on sand, right? We need solid concrete. We need to worry about, like, this house can build on the solid concrete. We'll worry about what color we're painting the walls afterwards. But let's build this foundation of habits first, which will also go into your relationship with food. We'll go into this identity work and start shifting and catching, reframing the way we think and go about things. So that's what we just talked about, a lot of that identity work, and then obviously taking those small actions, taking those small steps to build a foundation, right? It doesn't matter what your numbers are right now. If you're not consistent with getting X amount of steps a day, if you're not in the gym, you know, a couple times a week, consistently month over month. So it's what I call the foundation phase. We build this basically plan that no matter the season of life, you can do. If you got 60 hours a week, the kid's got a bunch of appointments, things are going crazy, cool. we can still get our steps in. We can still hit maybe X amount of protein or get protein in more or less each meal. So that's sort of the foundation of it. Then we go into fat loss, which is basically the foundation phase. Now we're just adding a little bit more attention to the numbers, like kind of it's boring, right? Like you said, like this whole process is not sexy. It's actually boring. We're doing the same shit, but we're just paying attention to like, all right, yeah, we do have calorie targets we want to hit. We also know you're in a better headspace because of this. So we're not going to like freak out if we're 10 calories over our target. And we just play that game for a couple months. But the last phase is equally important to the first phase. So we have the foundation phase, fat loss phase, but then I have what's called the freedom phase, where it's, yes, getting to your goal, but being able to also live at your goal, right? And that might mean, hey, we're going to stop counting calories. For a lot of individuals, that's scary. Like, oh my goodness, like that causes a lot of anxiety, causes me to feel overwhelmed. I don't know what's happening. And that's okay. Like, but we're trying to develop freedom, right? We're trying to get away from this mentality of thinking you have to track it or something's going to go wrong, or you can't track, and that gives you the permission to be like, well, I'm not tracking it, so fuck it, might as well go banana pants. But no, we're trying to develop this freedom to almost like put the final check mark, because there's going to be a lot of work done that's going to get you feeling more confident, but put that final check mark on like officially being out of this whole dieting mentality that we're constantly stuck in for years and decades through yo-yo dieting. But it's finally building that final layer of confidence to go live happily ever after. Like literally, you just spend, maybe it's 2 years, 5 years, or some people might be even a little bit more, but investing in that bit of time to spend the next 20 to 40 rest of your life just living. You know, you're confident to take care of your shit, right? You know, like there might be that tough love to get the workouts in, to get your steps in, to, you know, eat your fruits and vegetables, but you are confident to take care of that shit. And you're also confident to go enjoy cake at your kid's birthday party and not spiral because of it. You're confident to go out on your anniversary and not freak out about having a glass of wine or enjoying a dinner with your partner, right? We quiet those voices so much in that final phase and truly develop this internal freedom, right? We finally feel free. So I think a lot of the areas that, again, kind of come back to that identity, but even shifting out of this whole dieting process, yes, we go through it, but if we want to develop that freedom, I think we need that foundation, right? We need that foundation of habits, behaviors, identifying how we identify, and then we need to at least finish with some freedom so we can finally be like, all right, we're almost at peace with, hey, I know I'm taking care of my stuff, but I'm also feeling very confident in the way that about living my life and actually enjoying it in a way that the thought of food doesn't take over. The thought of maybe missing an exercise doesn't ruin my entire month. All these sort of negative thoughts that we typically have when it comes to entering weight loss and whatnot and going through the process.
Very, very well stated. I like that system. The foundation that you mentioned, I think, was really smart and well articulated in that, well, I mean, fat loss isn't the foundation. Fat loss is just a part of the result of doing all the healthy behaviors in a calorie deficit, right? It's not like exercise and eating healthy. It's actually not all about weight loss. It's just the way that you lose weight in the calorie deficit, so you feel great in the process, so that you're a healthier individual. And then you start to recognize how that foundation, like some people, and I have done it with certain clients who've been in deficits for a long time. It's like, let's not even start with a deficit. Let's start by just having a solid idea of a good meal plan, be healthy, eat enough calories. Actually, if you've been on a deficit or yo-yo dieting for so long, this will just be a little full for a little bit. You're actually going to feel like, okay, we knock off 200 or 300 or 400 calories. It's not going to be strenuous because you're not used to just sitting there. The number one thing yo-yo dieters don't do is eat calorie maintenance. It's the number one thing they have no fucking clue how to do. You know a deficit, you know how to starve yourself if you have to, and you know how to binge. To actually eat the right amount of calories for a month without gaining weight, do you know how to do that? You only know how to have a big extreme to think that your in between is somewhat good, but really you're either losing or gaining, losing or gaining. Now, there is you probably heard this discussion that it is healthier actually that people are yo-yo dieting, they're not trying at all. And I also believe to give yo-yo dieters encouragement. I say this a lot on my podcast, that they are my favorite people to work with, because they just need someone to give them this idea of, you know, reestablishing your identity, because you are clearly a fucking hard worker if you're a yo-yo dieter. If you're going, you're saying, I've tried everything, awesome. Let's stop trying everything. Let's try your way. Let's find the path that's for you. Let's find your Goldilocks zone or baby bear zone. And we can actually have it where it's more sustainable, and then it's going to evolve. Like you mentioned, like the way you describe that very well, it's a slow process to know what that means for you. That freedom phase for you is a slow process. I am still evolving my diet. I am still understanding my habits, because my lifestyle is going to change, right? And you said something really key at the end there that I love, where you're like, and it's okay to miss a workout. Like, because now we're talking about not only the candy and the food and the treats, that's already a fear. Like, you know, that sounds great to them that they would want to do it. But what's interesting is, I know as a yo-yo dieter and the over-exerciser I was too, oh, my workouts, then I'm really going to lose part of my identity. It's like, no, you're not actually, because it's amazing how little you could do and still sustain your results. And I think it's really helpful advice. I want to kind of dive into some of the other really great pieces of content and ideas that you had about this. So one was just really let's talk a little bit about the fuck it, you blew up. And then you also talked about no eating, doubling up on cardio. Let's talk about those voices. And how did you overcome them?
So give me a little bit more context on them. I create so much content.
Yeah, your post was Sunday morning voices. You say, fuck it, I blew up, so I might as well just keep going. And the other voice was no eating today, and I'm going to double up on cardio. And I've had very similar voices, and so I can tell my story after years.
No, very true. Big story of mine, as you know, earlier on in this podcast. Basically, a new joke I've been making is, how many times have you said start over on Monday? You probably said it 52 times this year already, right? And very common. I think I'll raise my hand as a weekend warrior. Still am a weekend warrior. Like we talked about, I still have a weekend warrior mentality. It's just a little bit more tame now. Like we figured out a strategy. I figured out my strategy, which I like you were saying earlier. Don't mean to neglect this question. I'll answer it. But just to rewind on one thing you said is, when we have this yo-yo dieter come to us, one thing I always say, it's like the problem was never you, right? You know what you know. You've been taught what you taught through what, like it's the same way. If I look up a million ways to change the oil of my car, I'm probably going to find a million different ways to do it. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not a handyman, to be honest, so don't ask me as far as how to do this stuff. But I only know what I know, and I know what I research. So I don't know if this is the right research I should be looking at. So a lot of individuals are told these approaches, like fear sugar, fear carbs, do the HIIT training, do this sort of style cardio, do this sort of workout. So that's what they know, right? And to a certain extent, it probably did work too, right? So they did see success with it, just wasn't sustainable. So I always say, the problem wasn't you, it's just more or less the way you approached it. And it just, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Like keto diets, I guess, do work for some people. Not for me, but they do work for some people. So to each their own in that sense. But we just got to find your recipe, right? Like everyone's recipe is going to taste a little bit different, but we also don't want too much salt in the recipe. That'll make it probably taste bad. We don't want not enough salt either. So we're just trying to find the right ingredients that allows you to, one, make progress, feel good, and then eventually hopefully develop that mental freedom with everything. But anyways, going back on what you were asking as far as that, like fuck it mentality or very strict. Again, all or nothing thinking, right? I'm either fuck it, like I'm going to go banana pants and just like keep this party going because again, I screwed up. So all my progress is ruined. So it's very short-term thinking versus also the other side of it. Now I have to punish myself. Like I have to punish myself for doing something bad. So I don't deserve to eat these foods. I don't deserve to have, over 1,000 calories for the next 3 days. I have to also make up for the let's call it relapse I had with this. So then we face this battle of tug of war of fuck it, might as well keep this party going. Like, I already ruined all my progress. In reality, when you didn't, and whatever, you end up taking, action and just going banana pants with your diet. Or you do the other extreme on the other side of the spectrum and you just cut everything out. You're just very rigid, very strict. And again, the boring, unsexy answer is the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, right? There's probably a middle ground to this, whether it's just simply getting back on track and, following what you had scheduled for that day. But we don't need to do more. We don't need to do less. We just need to get back on track with what we've been doing most of the time, right? It's a game of consistency. Perfectionism is just, I'm not going to say it's an excuse, because I believe people do have a strong-minded to doing everything really, really right. But the moments you aren't perfect, it's not give up altogether. It's just hey, what's one little action I can do right now to get my ass back on track, even if it's a simple glass of water. Like, just that one action that's like, oh, all right, I accomplished something that is aligned with my goals. Cool, I feel good again. I'm a couple more percentages back on track than what I was just feeling moments ago.
That little bit is so important for people to recognize, especially in those instances. That was the start of me improving my binge eating. It was, I'm going to reach, no, I'm already 4,000 calories deep, but I'm going to stop here. And I was like, I know it's not much, but I tried. I actually tried. And then I did a little bit more. And then I did a little bit more. But I was able to catch myself, be present in the moment a little bit, and not just fall into it and say, fuck it, I'll go deeper, because I already had that fuck it moment. But I was like, I'm at least trying here. And the idea too, and it progressively gets better and better and better. And to be able to say, like, even if you do have a day where you're relapsing again, it's like, it's okay. It's another relapse. It's new information. The thing I always try to, you had mentioned this about, like, don't blame yourself for not knowing this stuff. This is clearly a big problem in society. You're not unique to that. And that's actually a good thing to know, that we're all fucking up on this. Like, majority of the people are fucking up on this, but most people aren't even trying. And so you're at least trying. And for you to recognize, you even mentioned, like, I love how you mentioned flavor. People need to make peace with this. It's like everyone has different taste buds. So it's not crazy that everyone's going to have a different lifestyle that they're going to need to in order to sustain this kind of routine. There are people who could use our program and utterly fail at it, even if it's logical, but then go try keto and it works. Go try fasting and it works. Not even tracking calories. They're just going to do fasting and it works. And there's a percentage of people that stuff applies to. And so, and I'm not even like going to say that that's wrong. I'm like, hey, fucking right, you found it. I'm going to go on probability, and I'm going to go with what works for the people I've seen, more sustainability I've seen. And the other major thing just on the whole shift there was the identity, like almost forgiveness of yourself. Because instead of going to punishment, the thing that I always encourage people to recognize is, if you knew before you started eating that food that you were going to go down this rabbit hole, would you eat that food? If you knew for sure, and you're like, wow, maybe not, like probably not. Okay, so now, are you even the same person this very moment after your binge than you were before your binge? Technically, you're not. You have a new human experience. You have new knowledge that former you didn't have. So why don't you forgive former you a little bit? Why don't you say, hey, fuck, man, you didn't know. And let's try to make current me understand and appreciate that. Have a little self-compassion, and then take that to the very next day. Now, talking about punishment, and I've heard this from several clients recently, and I've heard it on social media, and it's just like this one guy, literally, and bear in mind, this guy's a jacked, lean guy. Clearly, I'm not gonna lie, gifted aesthetics. Like I would be blown away if this guy struggled with his eating habits. And he said, it was like a Q&A, and the guy's like, what do I do after eating an entire chocolate cake? And he's like, oh, fuck, man, you unloaded the clip on that one. Oh, man, you got to punish yourself. You got to go a whole day, mad, no eating. It's just like, dude, like, this isn't a revelation. That's not good advice. Every fucking binge eater thinks about doing that. and it doesn't work. It's actually what causes bulimia. This is what causes these eating disorders. It's not genius. It's not, what a breakthrough, I didn't think about not eating. It's like, of course they fucking thought about not eating. That's why they're eating the whole fucking chocolate cake. And so if we keep thinking punishment, and we're going to get more into this yo-yo identity, right? Because it's good or bad. Yep. And it's an even scarier thought. Don't punish yourself. Yep. Go and have breakfast the next day. If you have to have breakfast, if you know when you're in the midst of a binge that you don't have the opportunity to go do cardio and to fast the whole next day, are you really going to keep eating? Because it's super uncomfortable to have breakfast after binge eating. It's so filling. You feel all that stuff in your stomach. And so it's also what's going to prevent the propel forward. And I just know from my experience, I always tell people, is like, if you know that in your mind, I'm going to fast and compensate tomorrow for the next week, you will feel a right to eat deeper. And you don't even have to have that thought process. It's already deep and embedded in you because it's what your nature is. So if you know you can't, then you're just like, well, I should probably stop eventually here, right? Yeah. So I think this is a big thing that people need to look at. I love these points. So one last question, or two more questions. I got two more questions because I love all your ideas here. And I think it could be helpful to hear your perspective on, fitness, social media. What is one thing you find super annoying or maybe not helpful for people on social media these days that you wish they knew?
It's so funny you brought that up. When you were just speaking about that individual who said, "Oh, you need to punish yourself." There's obviously, in our world, we follow probably a lot of coaches, see a lot of good advice, bad advice, everything in between. And there's one thing I always laugh at. It's the coach who just tells you to be more disciplined and get to the gym, right? It's like, just be more disciplined. Just eat your protein, get to the gym, do your cardio, all this stuff. But then I'm going to ask that coach, hey, have your conversation that you need to have with your partner. Hey, write that blog you keep saying you're going to write. Or do that podcast you said you're going to keep doing. Or do that admin work you don't want to do, right? We got to understand the people we're speaking to are not us, right? We like the gym, right? We enjoy it. Not saying we can't get these individuals to like it and enjoy it and find the benefits of it, but just know they're not coming from the same spot we are. Where we like the gym, our level of like discipline to get it done is high. Like we enjoy it, right? We're going to get our workouts in, and that's very grateful for, right? That I have this ability. There's things in life I'm not disciplined with, right? Basically, I was talking to myself, like writing the blog, right? Doing the tracking my numbers for my business. Like, I hate fucking doing that shit. But like, as I'm typically late doing it, I suck at it. But they'd probably be good at it. They're good at their job. They're good at having their conversations with their partner. They're good at doing all these things that we're not disciplined at. Right? So for individuals listening, it's like you, quote unquote, maybe aren't disciplined in the gym, but like there's also all these other areas you are disciplined in. And for the coach, right, who is telling you on social media to be more disciplined, motherfucker, you like going to the gym. This isn't hard for you. It's a lot harder for the individuals we're speaking with and talking to because there's a little bit more going on in their brain that's causing that resistance. So that's been a recent little bit of like a trigger for me when coaches are just saying like, just be more disciplined, go to the gym, like suck it up. It's like, fuck off, dude. Like, yes, I agree. Like they should find ways to go move their body and whatnot. But just don't make it sound like it's that easy, right? Don't make it sound like it's that simple just because it's that simple for you. Again, you have areas in your life you need to be more disciplined in. So I think we just got to give each other some grace in those different areas. Again, doesn't mean we're not trying. Like, doesn't mean don't try and don't try to make an effort towards it. But just have a little bit more grace in that for certain coaches who do say that.
I love that sentiment because it's just so stupid when coaches say, I go to the gym because I'm disciplined. And it's like, no, you don't. You're jacked. You're on test. Like come on. Can you take a week off? That'd take fucking discipline for you.
Yeah.
You're an addict with body dysmorphia. Like those motherfuckers I don't think are very helpful. Now I do agree that the messaging is helpful to appreciate the value of discipline. but also you need to have the context, and you need to understand that if the messaging could be more around have discipline now so it's easy later, like that messaging would be a very helpful thing, because it's like, it's gonna suck now for a bit. Yes, you need to show up like you don't want to do it. You do. But you'll eventually like it. You'll eventually find ways to like it. And eventually it doesn't even take much skill, because it's just who you are. And you got to think of all the personality traits you currently have. As you just mentioned, all the things that you're good at, I'm not, because your discipline is task specific. And so you're good at showing up in certain elements of your life because it's who you are. So once you make these habits who you are, then it doesn't take this effort. Then it becomes more intuitive to you. And, oh man, I got to go get that gym workout done because this is who I am now. And it does bother you. You know, the one little identity thing, because this all comes back to identity, right? It was a little experiment when you probably have read Atomic Habits, I take it.
Yep, of course.
That's really where I learned a lot of that identity piece. And that's where I experimented with it. It was a very simple one was, you know, I used to occasionally leave dishes out not washed. And I was like, I want to be a person who's not okay with it. And I just used that language. It wasn't, and when you use certain language yourself, this is a really good test for people. Say that you are something that you're not right now and see how uncomfortable you are. Say the words, I'm not a binge eater, and see how uncomfortable you get. Say I'm not a yo-yo dieter, and see how uncomfortable you get. On the inside, you'll be fucking awkward. But the more you say it, the more you'll look for biases in order to support that. So I said, I'm not okay with this. I'm a person who's not okay with this. And eventually, it was like the feeling I used to have walking away from the dishes being dirty, now it irked me. It felt it inside me. I'm like, I got to go clean it. I got to go clean it. I got to go clean it. And I wasn't this clean freak. I wasn't. And now it's not, I'm not saying I'm a clean freak, but it does bother me to leave dishes in the dishwasher or in the sink overnight. And so play that identity piece with yourself. Use these words. If you want the discipline, I'm not okay with being the person that doesn't do these things. And that will take time, but you can show up over time and it eventually becomes who you are. And the people who are trying to guilt you for this identity piece, yeah, fucking ignore them, man. Like, I know that this entire industry will forever have a gap of personal trainers and nutrition coaches who are working professionals that their fitness and health demands that performance. We will never be able to actually 100% relate to the struggles they're going through unless you've entirely done all of your transformation work before being a coach. That is the only time that you can have a direct relevance. There's no way I can. And I will always try to make sure I give people that right to knowing that I don't understand, to just respect that I don't understand. It's harder for them. I know so many people in my life that are actually doing the training and they do the nutrition for a while, but they're so disciplined in other areas, being good parents, being hard workers, high demand stress jobs, that it's like, fuck yeah, I probably wouldn't sustain it for a full year either. And this is actually where, like, I mean, the example of Serena Williams going on Ozempic. You can't tell me that woman's not fucking, like, disciplined. Yeah. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there's financial incentives there maybe for being a spokesperson. But so it's like two birds, one stone. You get the big gulp, and then all of a sudden you're not eating as many calories, and then you get paid. But I do think there's something to it. I do think that food noise is a real thing, and it's not going to help people by just making them feel like discipline is the only thing forever. It's a thing that gets you started and to see results, but eventually make it who you are. That's the real thing. I think this has for sure been a great tutorial on self-identity and how much it can help people. One last question for you. What is your most recent ambition, and that could be work, life, personal, anything that you got excited coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, man. I feel like lately... actually, so me and my wife, just a little fun little side goal we're putting together. We're going to compete in high rocks together just for fun. I say we're doing like a party pace and everything. But that's been fun shift in training in my life because I've always liked the conditioning aspect of training. But to be real, I'm a meathead at heart. So I'd rather lift and do things of like powerlifting. I did that for years on end. But getting back into this conditioning aspect of training has been a lot of fun. And not only from just like a different style of training because I think it's been fun to mix it up, not just, deadlift, squat, bench every single week, but to add this condition portion and then also notice changes in my health markers. Like I had a resting heart rate of 63 beats per minute, and now I'm down to like 51 to 54 on average per day. HRV's getting better. So it's been unique from a standpoint of just seeing that stuff improve, and been a good change of pace in this training. So that's been fun. We got that coming up in December. And then as far as other ambitions coming up for the future, really just been really enjoying where I'm at with coaching, online stuff. I still do in person as well, and meeting some incredible people there. So I'm really looking to continue growing that, meeting new people, connecting with new individuals who have these certain goals that obviously align with the way I coach and whatnot. And then even down the line, I think in a couple of years, one aspect I miss about when I was in person, I was an in-person trainer for 5 years before going online and doing this mostly full time, is I miss the community aspect of in-person training. So we have a little bit of a community with one-on-one, but I'm looking to reach more people and creating more of like a like-minded relatedness community. So I got that in the books to do in the next couple of years as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that. It's been something recently I've been missing more and more, is like a group aspect of my coaching. So other than that, just kind of enjoying the holidays right now, getting quote unquote getting through it. But yeah, I'm excited to see how this High Rocks race goes and how everything goes down the line.
That's super cool. I love that community aspect. That is the piece that misses. You can include it in online training, and I included mine for some, accountability message groups and people support one another. But the in person, you can't replicate that. It's so key, and that is the mission for myself as well, is to have more semi-private training. I started in a gym like that. Focus Fitness, where it was a family. It was incredible. I remember when I traveled, away, and I came back, and it was like I was in, no offense to my family, it's just they only see me every month or two, but when they didn't see me for a month at the Focus Fitness family, it was like a celebration. And that's you want to be around that, and you see people sustain everything longer, right? Because there's people that you show up to just go to the gym for. Some people actually need that way more than us, right? Like we will show up for ourselves for fitness no matter what. And we have a handful of clients that will do that, but there's some clients who need another reason. And if you can create that community environment, I think that's a really key aspect. And I love that. I think that's a great ambition to have. Let me know how the High Rocks goes. I thought, I'm always interested in some stuff like that, because it's like, it doesn't seem as intense as CrossFit as far as you have to do the traditional Olympic lifts, which to me always be like, man, my shoulders wouldn't fucking handle that. Sure. But I like the mixture of, it's not great strength training, but I like the strength mixed with cardio. I do like that aspect. I would do boot camps like that. That sounds like a fun flip.
Yeah, it should be good. It is a good mix. Actually, the funny story is I did one about 2 years ago, and my ego just got in the way. I was like, I don't need to train for this. I'm fit enough. And then I did. I'm like, that was miserable. I need to train for this again next time I do it. But like, it definitely is a CrossFit-y vibe-ish. There's a lot of, I'd still say it's like an endurance conditioning type thing, but obviously there's that strength component to it. More strength endurance, we'll call it. But yeah, it's fun. Been getting to train for it for the last couple months and seeing how we perform.
Oh, I'm excited to hear how that goes. And we're going to have you on again in the future, because we could rip on this, emotional eating. Yeah. I love this stuff, because this stuff is the missing piece for most people, right? You mentioned it. We know what to do. Why aren't we doing it? And we got to dive deep. We got to actually give people more tangible things. So I'm going to have you in the future. And I really appreciate you coming on here today.
Yeah, Rylan, it's been a pleasure. Really great getting to chat with you, meet you, and even hear a little bit more about your story. But it's very cool. Like, again, not to keep this rolling, but what you were just talking about with the community aspect is like relatedness is a really big motivator. Like if you ever read the self-determination theory, relatedness is a big driver for motivation. Having that relatedness, like, oh, you struggle with this too? I'm not the only one. Like, there's motivation behind that. So getting along to just talking to a like-minded individual who you can see is a very caring, empathetic, understanding, smart coach has been more enjoyable for me probably. So I really appreciate you having me on and chatting with me.
Oh, thank you very much. Like-minded coach for sure. That's why I definitely got to have you on again in the future. So thanks.
Absolutely,
again.
Man.
Thank you again, Kevin. That was a fun conversation. I think this is one of the most important topics when it comes to behavior change is identity. It's understanding that you are trying to change who you are. This is the thing that so many people miss, especially yo-yo dieters, because yo-yo dieters will essentially just create two identities for themselves. They're the on person or the off person. You're living a fitness bipolar lifestyle. So you're going really regimented or you're off and you're just being relaxed, you're eating emotionally and you don't care. And so creating an identity of consistency would actually be a really scary thing. This isn't going to happen overnight, and I think Kevin had a great stepping stone for you, and it's start with a catch. Start catching yourself. When you're going to try to reframe your identity, start with catching things that are actually supporting the identity you don't want to have. The one that I really think is helpful is going back to Jason Brooks. You may or may not have heard me talk about this before. If you haven't listened to Jason Brooks episodes, there's a couple to check back on. Terrific discussion about red flag statements. Red flag statements are statements that you really create an identity of no possible alternative outcome. So there's absolutely nothing I could have done. I absolutely, I had absolutely no time. It's like, are those 100% true? It's like if you say there's absolutely nothing you could have done, okay, let's peel back on the layers. What if it wasn't a 60-minute workout you had to get done, but it was like doing bodyweight squats for 5 minutes straight, take breaks when you need to? I'm pretty sure your legs would get some stimulus from that, so there's absolutely nothing you could have done in 5 minutes. There's absolutely no way I had any time for any food, to organize any food. Okay, just making sure. You didn't scroll on your phone right before you went to bed, did you? Like, really start to ask yourself when you have a statement, especially when you say, here's another great one. It's like when there's food out or something. It's like, I can't not have it. I can't not. Like, just saying I can't or I had to. And when it has to do with healthy behaviors, that you actually had an alternative, but you're using these statements giving these statements so much certainty that you're not giving yourself an option because it's who you think you're supposed to be. And so really catch those red flag statements. Pay attention to when you're even giving yourself an out. It's like, I'm going to see if I can do better tomorrow. And it's just, don't give yourself that out. Because that is actually most likely your subconscious level of thinking, something in the back of your head just saying, give yourself an out, because we're probably not going to try tomorrow. But if you say, I'm going to do better tomorrow, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Immediately your body's going to almost want to reject it. And I always keep speaking to this because this is what Adele Spragon talked about. The emotions are in the body, not the mind. And so your body will get uncomfortable with that statement. But say it. Keep saying it to yourself. And then even if you just do a little bit better the next day, you'll be supported by this new identity. And this is another thing Jason Brooks says. You choose the action that puts in a vote for the person that you want to become. Very similar to what Kevin talks about, to be able to slowly build the habits of the person you're trying to become over time. And identity statements are huge. How are you identifying with yourself with your behavior? And full transparency, me and my friend who were very close because we were chubby buddies growing up. We always had a hard time with our weight. And we would routinely refer to ourselves after we've eaten unhealthy. It was, I'm just a fat piece of shit. And you're just like, not only do you call yourself fat, but you just completely demoralize yourself. And it's a joking. We're just joking. And this is something that Bobby Broughton, who is on here, he's a mental performance coach, and he had said, the subconscious mind does not understand jokes. It doesn't get sarcasm. You're talking to a 3 or 5-year-old. You're talking to the most raw form of you. So as much as you think you're joking with yourself, you are actually making yourself feel that a little bit. And you're going to find, again, reasons to support that behavior. I'm willing to bet if you've done this, you call yourself fat piece of shit, you're a binge eater or whatever, failure, you call yourself that. You probably actually felt good about saying that about yourself. Not that you feel good. The way I'm trying to describe this is that you feel correct. You also feel supported because you're calling yourself on your shit. But what you're actually doing is you're just reinforcing that negativity bias. I've spoken about this before recently on podcasts. It's just you're more comfortable feeling in your guilt than you are trying to step outside of it and trying to ask why. You're more uncomfortable just trying to not call yourself these negative terms, to just say, hey, I'm not asking you, and I've said this before on podcasts, I'm not asking you to be positive about it. I'm asking you to be objective about the problems that you have in your life, and to say in that statement, you had a bad binge eating or you had a bad episode. Do everything you can to use neutral, objective language without any emotional concepts behind it, and see how you feel after that. Now, internally, I know you're going to feel things. I'm not telling you to ignore those. I'm telling you not to give them too much light. Don't spend too much time in the negativity. And if you could go, after having a binge eating episode or a bad episode where you feel like you did something to let yourself down, if you could just see if you could use just objective, neutral thinking and see how your identity feels after that. And see how you feel about giving yourself compassion, appreciating where you came from. You now have new knowledge about how that wasn't the incorrect procedure, how you could have actually done something. And sometimes that's the other thing, is like, if you're not willing to even look at what happened and how you could have done better, then you're going to repeat the behavior. This is a part of the problem with only looking at the behavior with, emotion and negativity bias, is that you're only just going to think and remember anger and, frustration and guilt about it. But if you don't focus on those emotions, I always say guilt is an alarm to let you know you did something not in line with your values, but you don't stay in it. You just, okay, alarm's on, hit the button, turn off the alarm, but let's look at the action. Look at the action objectively. What did I do that wasn't aligned? But what people will tend to do is like, yeah, okay, I'm a fat piece of shit. And then you're just going to drown it with all these, what they think is calling themselves out. You think that you're actually, calling yourself out with all these terms that is going to reinforce a new behavior down the road, but it just reinforces the negativity bias. It reinforces the identity that you're actually going to do that thing again because you just called yourself it. This is clearly who I am. So the I am statements get reinforced, and then the behavior down the road will be that way. But if you listen to the alarm initially, oh wait, I didn't do something right, that's why I feel guilty. Okay, let's turn off that alarm. You initially hear guilt, that's okay. Ask guilt why it's there. Guilt is there for a reason. Okay, it's here because I ate 4,000 calories today, and I probably only needed 2. Okay, that's the information. Let's keep gathering information. Where did this start? Where did it go wrong? Oh, well, when I had that extra piece of fried chicken, and then it just went downhill from there. Okay, let's keep going down here. Because here's the thing. We're now investigating this objectively like an experimenter looking at data. And if you keep going down this, you can start to look at specific situations that you can personally improve on. And then the next time you're in a similar scenario, then you can be like, oh, wait, this is that moment. This is that exact moment that I was worried about, that I'm going down this rabbit hole. You can catch yourself. You can start using different language. You'd be like, what happens if I don't eat for like 5 to 10 minutes here? What if I just don't finish this piece of chicken that is feeling like I want to keep eating? Let's just give it 10 minutes. And that's the only way, is if you start to, what I always say is review film. Athletes do this all the time. When athletes, have a football game, a boxing match, anything, okay, let's review film. Let's watch our sparring. Okay. I still tend to drop my left hand there. I got to start bringing that back up. Okay, next time I'm on the bag, I'm going to practice just that jab, bringing it back. Because then next time I'm in sparring, I might not do that same mistake. And guess what? They're probably still going to make that mistake, but they're going to make it less often because they're paying attention to it now. Now, if that boxing athlete didn't watch film, right? You can already tell well, that's probably not a good idea. And he just went on his emotions about how he felt. He might be doing bad or good and not know. So try to be more objective. Try to work on those identity statements and look at how you can improve. Try rephrasing things. One of the neutral thinking, as I said, being objective, one of the ones that was so potent for me, this is before I even knew about the concept of neutral thinking. I just knew that when I used expressions of self-hatred, it was not conducive to improving anything. It never helped. And so just, I knew it wasn't about body positivity. I knew that wasn't going to help. But I did say, what if I just don't allow the word hate towards myself? And so I could look at things I want to improve my physique. It doesn't mean there isn't a task of self-improvement. It means that I'm not going to use hatred towards myself in order to describe the things that I'm doing. And I got farther and farther away from using heavy, emotionally charged descriptions of myself and just more objective descriptions. Yeah, there's times where I might have more body fat. Notice I didn't say chubby, or I didn't call myself fat. I just literally made it as objective as I can. I want less body fat on my body. I want to have a better body fat percentage, or a leaner body fat percentage. But me as a person, I'm not going to be identified with those statements as far as morality and my self-worth. But I have a mission in order to improve those. And I can actually be grateful when I accomplish that mission. Again, not that it has to be so much about, you're pulling all this emotion towards it, but try to really pull away from the heavily emotionally charged wording and focus on neutral thinking, focus on objective thinking towards the task that you have to do in order to improve yourself. And I really love this sentiment that Kevin had about yo-yo dieters not thinking long-term enough. Long-term is terrifying for a yo-yo dieter. Long-term is just not motivating because it's not soon enough. It's not fast enough. But what if you did? Now, I have a little bit of a mental practice that could be helpful for you. Because, remember, here's the thing, too. I want to go on this tangent about dates. The good thing that yo-yo dieters do is that they actually show what they're capable of over a period of time. And although 3 to 6 months, typically I'd say a lot of yo-yo diet, I don't know the stats of it, but I imagine most yo-yo dieters will do anywhere from 1 to 6 months, and then they'll gain their weight back. And typically what it'll be like a date. Now what they've done really well is they've proven that the concept can work. They've dieted, lost some weight, gained it back. That's the yo-yo diet. And the good thing there is they've gotten over the hump about the 1 to 2 month mark, which a lot of people do fail at. Yo-yo dieters usually do stand out in that they know that, hey, I can lose this weight, and I try keto, I'll try this diet, but they will lose the weight better because they go a little bit past that month 1, 2, or 3. And they get to see results. But they stay so focused on that one date, and again, that's longer than what some people think is long, but like me and Kevin are saying, it's not the big picture. That's not real long. How long is long? Long is years. Long is life. And as much as you want to think stringing together, 3 to 6 months, and it feels slow on a relative basis, one day at a time, feels fucking slow. It feels like a very long time. But I mean, isn't the mission to be in better shape 3 to 5 years from now anyways? Isn't that where you want to be? Now, the thing about habit, it's a journey, right? And the thing about habits changing over time, remember, if you can give yourself this patience of being willing to be on a journey, like me and Kevin talk, we're still, both of us are working on improving our habits to this very day, but we've just sorted out a lot of the noise. And in terms of unnecessarily doing double workouts, having all this food guilt, having all these crazy fluctuations, we've controlled it significantly better gradually over time because we got to know ourselves and the problems that we have, but still knowing it's always going to require some improvement. But that's also something you get better at, being better at creating these habit changes over time. It was really interesting that I didn't even recognize until just talking to Kevin now. Man, I only started including treats in my cuts literally a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. All I can tell you is I can remember explicitly where I started to really stop fearing pastries and desserts. And that was actually with Angelina when we went to Vancouver. And I was going to go, we're going on a trip, so I wanted to be in decent shape for the trip. But on top of that, it was anytime the idea of going out, if I'm not in my non-disciplined zone, I thought I'm going to eat too much. I'm going to gain weight. It just seemed like a weight gaining event, which I'm willing to bet if you're a yo-yo dieter, you know what I mean. This is the off period. This is when you're not trying. And then it just changed because it wasn't about just eating a ton. It was about having a nice little treat with my partner. And then ate pretty healthy or some modest-sized meals. We walked a lot. I didn't gain any weight on that trip. I ate out a lot. We walked a lot. But it was where I started to realize how much more control I had over these foods and my habits around these foods. Gradually over time, started to realize I can include treats. I can have all these things. It was a really big identity shift of recognizing that when I was doing all my weight loss and all these habits, it was, I remember, I've spoken about it on the podcast before, but it's been a while, so maybe you hadn't heard it. I was doing all this stuff, and I was well disciplined, and this was years ago. This was back in university, and I can't wait for this to be over. I remember thinking that, and then I thought to myself, dude, like, you're crushing it right now. You're crushing all your schoolwork. You're showing up for your training. You have great meals. You're locked in on your diet. Isn't it the best version of you? Don't you kind of want to keep that going? And so I started to evolve my perception about, like, it's not just about the end date. The date is a checkpoint, and start to adopt. And I remember finishing one of my weight losses and being like, hey, man, I can have anything I want. It's like, but you don't have to. Have the things that, might help you in this moment. Maybe you have a pastry or a treat here and there, but it doesn't have to be an on or off switch. And that still took a long time. It still took a long time for me to fully evolve to where I'm at. And again, still improving my habits. I'll still have ebbs and flows. Recently on my social media, I did my Halloween candy cut because I was eating too much Halloween candy. But I reeled it in that much quicker. And going through the Halloween candy cut made a better relationship with these foods. Because it wasn't on or off. It was just like, no, just keep having it. Just keep getting a better sense of it. When I did the 60-day eating a cookie every day, man, that was so mentally helpful for me. When I did my bodybuilding cut a couple of years ago, where I was like, I'm going to have a cookie every single week, a treat every single week, it made such a difference to realize how I could have in these foods. The one thing that I know we didn't talk about is that I do feel, he had mentioned where he feels certain people miss it on the ideas on being able to include those foods. I do think a great deal of people miss structure. So typically when we start things off, it's like helping people figure out food structure, so then at least the baseline amount of protein you need is figured out, baseline of micronutrients, knowing what a good healthy meal kind of looks like, meal plan looks like, and then altering it to the person's preferences. I do feel like a lot of people need that. So it's just like when we say, hey, include your favorite foods, I think we're missing something for a good portion of the population that actually doesn't know how to hit those 100 to 150 grams, or if you're bigger, 120 grams, 200 grams of protein, depending on your body weight and size. People don't know how to hit that. They don't know what it looks like in food. They don't know what it looks like to be able to prioritize cooking vegetables and making these meals and making them fit their life. Like, this is a big gap, and so I do feel like social media, people like, me and Kevin were saying, hey, include your favorite foods, all that stuff. Like, you still need structure. There is a ton of back end work of, like, I make sure my meals are prepped. I know what I'm eating every day. I do track my meals all the time. There's a ton of work that goes into it. But then guess what? I get to have chocolates every single day. I can have a cookie every single day. So when you put in that back work, it does make a big difference in the long term, so that you can set up your style. And I'm going to really encourage you, if you're a yo-yo dieter, to start including the treats on the journey. It could be, you got to figure out your own pace. As Kevin even says, like, it doesn't work for everyone. But if you're trying to stop being a yo-yo dieter, stop having binge eating episodes, figure out what your pace, your cadence of maybe a treat every other day. Like, I recommend Halloween candy if you're a candy person, because, man, that's like 100 calories. 2 little pieces of chocolate every day. It's been really easy. Some days I'm like, I don't even want this, but it's part of my challenge. I'm going to keep doing it. And now it has no pull over me. And so to be able to have that comfort with those foods is a really powerful thing. One thing I wanted to finish off here with is a really helpful strategy, not just his perfect day. I think that's super, super useful, and you should do it. Think about a perfect day for yourself. Think about, what would a perfect day 5, maybe even 10 years from now? Like, look at how long is long. When do you plan on being in shape? Well, probably rest of your fucking life. So do it when it really matters. 5 to 10 years, let's go 10 years even. What are those habits that person are doing? And think about a perfect day that's healthy, but it's fun, fitting in things that you want, doing all the right things, but also really embody and imagine, visualize you're enjoying that moment. You're enjoying that lifestyle, okay? So you have that perfect day, and he had mentioned, okay, let's choose one of these habits they're doing. Then I also want you to take a little bit of a step farther. I want you to think about, because this is really uncomfortable for yo-yo dieters, if yo-yo dieting wasn't the solution and this was, what would it look like? What would the perfect plan progression look like? What would the stages need to be? You have this idea of going for a walk every day. You have your meal prepped. You're going to the gym. You're spending time with family. Well, what are these things? Okay, so in this first year, I'm going to make sure that this habit is down. In the next year, I'm going to make sure this, and then you start to actually add these up. And it almost kind of fucking makes sense, right? So you're like, fuck, if I just really owned a habit each year, and you could do other things, don't get me wrong, but you own one habit each year, I think it would be pretty sensible to say that could work. Now, the one thing I do admit is that dates work, like challenges work to get momentum, to get you on the right track. But just make sure that the challenge and the dates are checkpoints to evolve your habits over time, and you make sure that you're doing something that after that date, you're going to keep doing it. That's the really big thing. Just something I've talked about recently. Just make sure that you're planning maybe maintenance phases, diet breaks, so that you're working on sustainability in your weight loss journey. But gradually over time, that's what makes a difference. Start with the identity piece. Start with the right language with yourself and see how big of an evolution you can have. Thank you so much for listening today. If you like this, please share it with someone. It would be great if you left a review. Haven't gotten too many reviews these days. A 5-star would be preferable. And share it, because that's how this podcast actually makes it out to more people, if you think it would be really helpful for a fellow yo-yo dieter that might get some really good insight here. And go check out Kevin's stuff, because he's got some great stuff on dieting, especially around this stuff, around emotional and identity eating. I'll leave all his info in the show notes there, so you can catch him there. And we're definitely going to have him on again. I talked off air. We have a lot in common. We have a lot we're going to talk about in the next episode. So definitely go check out his stuff. And thank you as a listener. I'm always going to thank you for being a podcast listener and to listening to me rant this far in the episode. So thank you for your time. I always appreciate this kind of patronage and listening to me go on about this stuff, because I'm just trying to help you chase your own ambition, because we know life isn't about the pursuit of happiness, but rather the happiness within your pursuit. And I'll catch you next time.